The Wildlife Center of Virginia is the nation's leading veterinary hospital for native wildlife. The center has earned a reputation around the world as an effective and innovative force for wildlife conservation. Now, the Wildlife Center also has a new home. The center began its life-saving work in 1982 in a converted Augusta County horse barn. In 1985, the center moved to a group of trailers crowded onto 1 acre of rented land in Weir's Cave. However, to realize its potential, the Wildlife Center needed a permanent facility designed to meet the needs of wildlife. In 1990, a gift of land from the DuPont Company and the open arms of the community led the way to Waynesboro. With the help and support of countless friends, the dream would become a reality. The Wildlife Center would finally have a home where it could truly spread its wings and fly. The limitations of the past melted away to reveal a future full of promise and potential. On July 30th, 1995, the Wildlife Center of Virginia began a new era in wildlife conservation with the opening of its new $1.1 million teaching and research hospital for native wildlife. The ribbon cutting was the culmination of 5 years of planning, fundraising, building, and struggle. The results were more than worth the effort. The new facility is thought to be the finest of its type in the world. Not only is the new building pleasing to the eye, it is a lesson in environmentally friendly design. The facility is heated and cooled with geothermal energy. All windows are insulated glass, which have a special coating to reduce radiated heat transfer. The lights throughout the building conform to EPA's Green Lights guidelines for energy efficiency. Even the walls are insulated with cellulose insulation made from recycled newspapers. The Wildlife Center takes its role as a public service organization seriously. From the moment you enter the front door, you find a facility and a staff that are user-friendly. Even though most of the building is not open for unscheduled public tours, the spacious foyer and reception area provide a warm welcome to visitors, whether they are bringing in an injured animal or simply stopping by to purchase a t-shirt. It is easy to see that if you love wildlife, you will love the Wildlife Center of Virginia. The Wildlife Center's library conference room is one area that will be available to visitors. The center is building its collection of books and journals on a wide variety of wildlife topics. These reference materials will be a valuable resource for students, professionals, and others interested in wildlife and wildlife medicine. The spacious meeting room is also used by outside groups and for the workshops and classes taught by Wildlife Center personnel. Ed Clark, president of the Wildlife Center, is one of the 4 original founders of the organization. He knows better than anyone just how far the center has come from its days in a drafty barn. There's an entire team of people who stay busy telling the Wildlife Center's story and promoting the Wildlife Center's mission. Here in the Environmental Education Workroom and in the nearby administrative offices, the center's education and management staff are constantly looking for new ways to reach people and get them involved in the conservation of wildlife. Through more than 500 presentations each year, mainly focused on elementary school children, the Wildlife Center reaches 85,000 people. Teacher workshops, publications, and the extensive use of the mass media also help to spread the conservation message. While the staff is extremely talented, without a doubt, the most effective spokesman for conservation are the animals themselves. Libby, an immature bald eagle, like all of the Wildlife Center's education animals, cannot be returned to the wild. She has a permanent disability from her severe wing injury. Skylar, a mature bald eagle, is one of the center's most well-known residents. He's been a guest in the Virginia General Assembly and at the U.S. Capitol. He's been on the Today Show and Larry King Live. He's even been a visitor to the White House on 2 occasions. However, on his last visit, he scared Socks the cat, and he hasn't been invited back. Even common raptors like the kestrel, the smallest of the North American falcons, are popular with all audiences. While they are frequently seen along the highway or perched on power lines, few people get to see these beautiful birds at close range. The Wildlife Center also has the rarest of birds in Virginia, like the gyrfalcon, the largest of all falcons in North America. They're usually found only in the subarctic regions of the frozen north. This individual is the first ever seen in Virginia. However, she was shot and permanently crippled in January of 1984. The barred owl's haunting call, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" is frequently heard in the forest at night, but few people are lucky enough to glimpse this nighttime hunter. The barred owl is one of 7 species in Virginia, and the Wildlife Center treats them all. The elongated ear tufts of the long-eared owl are not ears at all. Neither are they horns, as was once thought by primitive people who believed owls to be the demons of the night. It is easy to imagine the spooky image that might be seen around a midnight campfire as these eyes reflected the firelight. This red-tailed hawk was the victim of habitat loss. When she was still a chick, her nest tree was bulldozed for an amusement park. The tree fell on her and crushed her wrist. Don't let the tiny size of the saw-whet owl fool you. It is a fearless hunter. Though weighing only a few ounces, the saw-whet often takes prey much larger than itself. Like most owls, the saw-whet has large eyes which enable it to see well in nearly total darkness. Owls also have very sensitive hearing. The feather discs around each eye help it gather both light and sound. The reason the Wildlife Center is such an effective voice for conservation is because it has a unique perspective on wildlife and the environment. The Wildlife Center is a hospital for injured animals. Since 1982, the center has treated more than 20,000 patients. The new building reflects this priority. Nearly two-thirds of the building's 5,700 square feet are devoted to animal care. The Wildlife Center provides a unique window through which people can see wildlife and environmental issues in a completely new way. The Wildlife Center's facility is a state-of-the-art hospital with the most sophisticated and advanced technology being used in wildlife medicine anywhere in the world. 2 full-time veterinarians, a licensed veterinary technician, 3 animal caretakers, and literally hundreds of volunteers care for 2,500 patients each year. These animals come from every corner of Virginia, and many come from neighboring states. The center's diagnostic lab contains very sophisticated equipment which is used to fully evaluate an animal's condition. Nearly 40 tests can be performed on blood, fecal, and urine samples which are collected from the center's patients. These tests reveal a wealth of information, not only about the individual animal, but about the environment as well. In the spacious, well-lighted treatment area, there is room for both doctors to work at the same time. Whether it is the examination of new patients or the preparation for surgery, everything they need is at their fingertips. The center's treatment area is fully stocked with all types of medical supplies and a full range of drugs and pharmaceuticals. If the cabinets and work counters in this room remind you of a human hospital, it's for good reason. Every cabinet, shelf, bookcase, and counter throughout the entire Wildlife Center facility was salvaged from King's Daughters Hospital in Stanton, which was recently closed in 1994 to make room for a new, large regional medical center. This is just one of the ways in which the Wildlife Center saved money during the construction of its world-class facility. The operating room is also an example of state-of-the-art design, featuring specialized lights, fully adjustable operating table, X-ray viewer, oxygen outlets, and special air conditioning features. There's even a video camera to record surgical procedures for later instructional use. This intensive care room also doubles as a nursery. Incubators donated by human hospitals enable the staff to maintain their most fragile patients in a warm and protected environment. During the months of May and June, nearly 1,000 baby animals will pass through this room. The Wildlife Center's main animal holding ward is also a very busy place. As you can see, this room contains cages of nearly every shape, size, and description. The Wildlife Center must be constantly prepared to care for animals as small as hummingbirds or as large as black bears. An important part of the patient's recovery is nutritional support. This often means special supplements of calcium, vitamins, or high-energy foods. There are often 200 patients representing 50 species in the hospital on any given day. A wide variety of foods must be kept on hand at all times. Patients come into the Wildlife Center 7 days a week. Most are brought in directly by private citizens who have found the animal, but the Wildlife Center also has a statewide network of transporters to help get animals in for treatment. Rescuers come in all sizes and all ages, and for that matter, so do the patients. But each one is treated with the same care and compassion. Each patient is assigned an individual case number and has a complete medical history set up for the files. When an animal is first admitted, it will be taken from the receiving area to the hospital where it gets a complete physical exam by one of the center's 2 veterinarians. This tiny bird has been attacked by a cat. Attacks by house cats are one of the most frequently seen injuries at the Wildlife Center. Most such injuries end up being fatal. If this tiny bird has any chance to survive, the doctor must carefully find the broken bones and all of the puncture wounds. Antibiotics are usually needed to combat the lethal infection that accompanies cat attacks. However, giving a shot to a tiny sparrow is extremely delicate work. The most common injuries sustained by owls result from automobile collisions. Even though owls have a reputation for being wise, they're just not smart enough to stay out of the road. They will focus on a mouse running across the highway and swoop right down in front of oncoming traffic. Being hit by a car usually means that there will be broken bones and head trauma. Eye injuries, such as detached retinas or nerve damage, are also common problems associated with automobile collisions in owls. During the examination of nearly all of the injured patients, the veterinarian will need to know more about an animal than can be seen with the naked eye. This usually requires a variety of blood tests. Blood samples will be taken from wing or leg veins, then turned over to the laboratory staff for further testing. These tests often disclose problems which would otherwise go undetected. In the center's laboratory, there is a variety of very sophisticated equipment which can take a single drop of blood and reveal a great deal of information. Here a blood sample is placed into a tiny glass tube. Once prepared, these tubes are placed into the centrifuge. The blood is then spun at very high speed to separate the blood solids from the clear serum. Once the spinning is completed, this blood sample will be measured to determine the amount of solids in the tube. The technician can provide very important indicators of the animal's overall health and condition to the veterinarian. Samples may also be examined in the spectrophotometer, or perhaps even under the microscope, to provide a more detailed analysis of the blood components and often the blood chemistry. The teaching microscope is a special tool in the Wildlife Center's laboratory which allows two staff members to look at the sample at the same time. Here the technician and the veterinarian consult on the blood sample on the slide below. Regardless of how many animals of the same species may come in or how busy the staff may be, each animal receives the highest quality care and the most thorough examination possible. While each doctor may have her own style or the order of exam may be different, the end result is the same. The Wildlife Center gives the best veterinary care available anywhere in the world. Here, Dr. Phyllis Rayner, the Wildlife Center's Director of Veterinary Services, examines a barred owl which has also been hit by a car. Sarah Sneed, a licensed veterinary technician, expertly restrains this owl to enable the doctor to methodically examine each of the owl's parts. Special care is taken to examine the owl's eyes. The internal structures of the eyes are very vulnerable to automobile collision. Dr. Rayner carefully examines the owl's pupillary response. Both eyes must respond equally to the light. An owl's eyesight is critical to its ability to survive in the wild. Even though its bones and body may heal, without vision, this owl can never be returned to the wild. Another valuable diagnostic tool is the X-ray. Even though a veterinarian may be able to detect a fracture by hand, a detailed X-ray is needed to determine whether or not a simple splint can be used to immobilize the fracture or if surgery will be required. Small birds are often positioned for their X-rays using a special tape that will not stick to their feathers. It is very important that the patient remain perfectly still as the X-ray is taken. Larger birds, like this red-tailed hawk, must be physically held in place by the veterinarian or the technician. You will notice that protective clothing is always worn by the staff to shield them from the potentially harmful effects of the X-ray beams. Again, this hawk must be held perfectly still so that the X-ray will clearly show any fractures which may be present in its body. Frequently, the X-ray will reveal a fracture that must be repaired surgically. Here a patient is prepared for a very delicate orthopedic procedure. The technician administers the gas anesthetic while the veterinarian plans the complicated operation to come. With the X-ray as her roadmap, the veterinarian will carefully open the broken wing, locate and realign the fragments of bone, and prepare to install the surgical pin which will be lined inside the hollow bone cavity of this bird's wing. A drill is used to make the opening, then the long, slender shaft of the surgical steel pin is neatly slid into the opening and bandaged in place. This process is often lengthy and extremely delicate. One slip and this bird will never fly again. Many times, the veterinarians will collaborate on the development of new surgical techniques. X-rays are often taken after the operation is completed, and the doctors will review the case step by step to see how the procedures can be improved. Dr. Katie Barish frequently returns to the X-rays with veterinary students who are studying at the Wildlife Center to explain how the procedure was done.
First bone, and there's another fragment, there's an extra unattached fragment that's in there, so it's in 3 pieces, and that's the pre-op X-ray. The post-op X-ray, we have driven a pin through the bone called an IM pin. And here's a view after surgery. We check the placement of our pin. We haven't cut the pin yet in case we need to back up the pin or we have to change the alignment of the pin.
While nearly 70% of the Wildlife Center's patients are birds, 1 in 4 is a mammal. This tiny flying squirrel has been attacked by a cat. As with the birds, cat attacks are the most frequent injury sustained by small mammals treated at the center. The examination procedures are the same regardless of the species. Here, tape is used to immobilize the squirrel for its x-ray. It's certain that this black bear was not attacked by a cat. Actually, automobile collisions are responsible for most of the black bear injuries treated at the Wildlife Center. Here, a 2-year-old black bear is operated on for a ruptured stomach that resulted from being struck by a car in Suffolk, Virginia, just outside the Dismal Swamp. The surgery was a complete success. Within weeks, the bear has his final pre-release exam. His recovery is found to be complete. His incision has completely healed. While the anesthetized animal peacefully sleeps, the decision is made to set him free. This black bear is a lucky one, but for other patients, medications and daily treatments are still in store for them. This beautiful northern harrier has his wing bandaged from an operation. A pill is forced deep into his throat to be sure that he swallows it. Back into the cage and wait some more. This immature red-tailed hawk is carefully removed from its cage. Notice the heavy gloves worn by the technician. The feet and talons are the most dangerous weapon on the hawk, but the hooked beak can also present a challenge. The veterinarian places her thumb in the animal's jaw while the pill is forced far back into its throat. Many of the patients are so weak they are unable to eat on their own. Tube feeding is necessary to maintain their strength. Even the tiny saw-whet owl can present a challenge. Piece by piece, this owl eats his way back to a recovery. You really don't want to know what this owl is being fed. Come on, one more bite. Some of the patients are not so reluctant, however. The hard part is simply catching them to give them their medicine. This tiny blackbird can deliver a nasty bite even though it is a very small creature. Notice how carefully the doctor positions her fingers to keep the head safe and away from tender skin. Liquid medication is much easier to administer. For some patients, they will eat everything in sight. This baby gray squirrel hungrily pursues the food being presented through the syringe. Within just a few weeks, this baby will be strong enough to eat on his own. He'll then be moved to outdoor cages. Before long, he'll be climbing through the trees in the mountains of western Virginia. The a la carte menu at the Wildlife Center looks pretty good. Fresh vegetables, fruits, and a wide variety of nutritious offerings. All are artistically displayed for our guests. However, before you're tempted to dig in, you may want to take a closer look. Everything that is nutritious is not necessarily appetizing. One of the most important parts of the Wildlife Center's facility is the large outdoor cage complex. Here, the final phase of treatment takes place. In the center's 200-foot-long flight cage, eagles, hawks, owls, and other large birds have more than 45,000 cubic feet in which to get the exercise they need to rebuild muscles that have grown weak during hospitalization. There are more than 50 different outdoor enclosures in all at the Wildlife Center, from deer yards to turtle pens, which can accommodate the center's patients and education animals. Each cage is cleaned and serviced daily. While the new facility means more space and the opportunity to do many more things, it has also meant a great deal more work for the animal care staff and for the volunteers. But all will agree that the results of this labor are more than worth the effort. Most of the time, the Wildlife Center's patients don't really understand or appreciate the care and concern that goes into their recovery. While our patients never say thank you, and for that matter never pay their bill, this is a work that is more than satisfying. The staff of the Wildlife Center are on the job 7 days a week, 365 days a year. For the animal staff, educators, and administrators, the workday often extends far into the night. The work of the Wildlife Center is indeed a labor of love. However, the Wildlife Center cannot exist on love alone. The Wildlife Center depends entirely on private contributions from people like you. The Wildlife Center does not receive any government funding for its programs and services. If you care about wildlife and would like to get involved, contact the Wildlife Center of Virginia and make a tax-deductible contribution today. Through no other organization can you make such a difference for wildlife in such a direct way. Your support will save wild lives and make the world a little brighter for all of us.